The treaty and the assignment. The year was not too far in the future. Earth was no longer alone in the stars after decades of silence. Humans had made contact with a powerful alien alliance. The first meeting had been full of fear, mistrust, and weapons pointing in every direction. But after many long talks, after too many battles that almost started, a treaty was finally signed. This treaty was meant to keep peace between humans and aliens, but many on Earth did not trust it at all. The treaty had one strange rule. Every important human officer, scientist, or leader would be given an alien assistant. These assistants were said to be guides, helpers, and bridges between the two species. But whispers spread through military bases and science labs. People said the aliens were spies. Some said they were secret watchers, recording every human word. No one knew the truth, and no one dared to ask too loudly. In the middle of this stood one man, a young officer named Daniel. He had worked hard to earn his place in the Earth Defense Command. He was careful, loyal, and respected by his team. But when the orders came, his stomach turned cold. He was told he would be assigned one of the alien assistants. No choice, no delay. By treaty law, it had to be done. Daniel tried to act calm. He tried to show his usual strong face, but inside he felt a storm. He remembered the stories. One assistant had caused a whole mission to fail when she accidentally pressed the wrong command. Another had been caught listening to private human talks, and another had simply vanished one night, leaving behind nothing but questions. Now it was Daniel's turn. His chest felt heavy, as if a shadow had already entered his life. The day of the assignment came. The base was busy. Soldiers walked fast in the halls. Officers whispered over reports. Everyone pretending not to care about the treaty rule, but everyone watching with sharp eyes. Daniel sat in the briefing room, waiting. A clock ticked too slowly. The air felt heavy. The door was closed. And he thought maybe, just maybe, the alien would not arrive, but then everything went wrong at once. The commander of the base stood at the front, speaking in a low voice. This was not a normal meeting. It was a secret strategy discussion. Plans were being drawn on the screen. Maps of defense lines, hidden routes for supply ships, all things no alien should see. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes sharp, his mind focused, and then, without warning, the door hissed open. Every head turned. The room froze, and she walked in, tall and calm. Her skin shimmered like moving silver. Her eyes glowed faint blue, her steps soft but filled with power. She was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. The alien assistant had arrived, and she had walked straight into the most secret meeting of the week. The worst possible moment. Gasps filled the room. Some officers rose from their chairs. Hands moved near weapons, but no one fired. The treaty forbade it. The commander's face turned hard, his jaw tight, but even he could not stop what was written in law. Daniel's heart pounded, his throat dry. This was not how he imagined meeting her. This was not safe, not right, but the treaty had no care for human comfort. The alien woman stopped at the table, her glowing eyes sweeping the room. She did not look nervous. She did not look ashamed. She simply stood tall, and with a voice that echoed strangely, as if two voices spoke at once, she said, "I am Lyra. I am assigned to Officer Daniel, and I will serve by his side." The silence broke into sharp whispers. Daniel felt 100 eyes on him. He felt as if the ground had opened under his feet. His secret thought screamed, why here, why now? Of all the times for her to enter, it had to be this one. The commanders exchanged dark looks. Some wanted to throw her out, others knew they could not. Treaty law bound them, and treaty law was stronger than personal anger. Daniel forced himself to stand. His voice came out tight. "I am Daniel," he said. "You are assigned to me." His hands curled into fists behind his back. "But you entered without permission. This meeting is classified." He tried to sound firm, but he felt the weakness of his words. The treaty gave her power, not him. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Her eyes glowed brighter, and she spoke again. "Classified to humans, perhaps, but not to allies." Her words were calm, but they carried a sharp edge, as if she already knew too much, as if she had been listening from the shadows before stepping inside. Murmurs filled the room. Suspicion grew like fire, and Daniel felt the weight of the moment press down on him. This was the beginning of something dangerous, something bigger than him, bigger than the base, maybe bigger than Earth itself. He had been given an alien assistant, and she had entered his life at the worst moment. The story of their uneasy partnership had just begun, the alien's entrance. The door had already hissed open, the secret meeting already broken, and yet the moment stretched long. The alien woman stood still in the doorway, her tall frame outlined by the bright hall light, her shadow reaching into the room like a warning. The officers inside felt their throats tighten. Some moved their hands near hidden weapons. Others froze in disbelief. No one had expected her to arrive this way. Her name had been spoken only once, and already it felt heavy in the air. Lyra. Her skin shimmered like running silver. As if liquid metal moved beneath the surface, her eyes glowed faint blue, not like lamps but like deep ocean light, alive and unblinking. Every slow step she took into the room sent a ripple of tension through the humans. The treaty said she was here as an assistant, but every man and woman in the room felt she was a spy. Daniel could not stop staring. Part of him wanted to challenge her, to demand she leave, to shout that she had no right to be here. But another part of him, a smaller and quieter part, was trapped by her presence. She moved with a confidence that was not human. She was not afraid of their anger. She was not nervous under their gaze. She looked at them as if they were children guarding a secret box, a box she already knew how to open. The commander cleared his throat, his voice sharp. "This meeting is restricted," he said, his hand flat against the table. "You will wait outside until called." But even as he spoke, everyone knew his words were powerless. The treaty gave her authority. Her assignment was legal. No order could undo it. Not even his. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes sliding across the maps and defense plans glowing on the wall. She seemed to drink in every line, every code, every hidden route, and only then did she speak. Her voice was strange, layered, as if two voices echoed from the same mouth. "Restricted to humans," she said calmly, "but not restricted to allies. The treaty grants me entry." Her words landed like knives, sharp and cold. Some officers whispered in anger. Others looked away, unwilling to meet her glowing gaze. Daniel felt the heat rising in his chest, his fists tightening behind his back. She was assigned to him, yet she acted as if she belonged to no one, as if she answered only to her own kind. The commander wanted to argue, but treaty law had sealed his lips, so his eyes turned to Daniel, silently commanding him to speak. Daniel forced himself to step forward, his boots heavy on the floor, his voice low but firm. "You are Lyra," he said, "assigned to me by treaty, but you entered without permission. This room holds classified matters." He tried to sound stronger than he felt, but his words broke against her calm face. Lyra turned her eyes on him, and for the first time she focused fully. Daniel felt as though her gaze pierced his skin, reading the rhythm of his pulse, the weight of his thoughts. She spoke softly but with a strange certainty. "Then I must be here, for what is hidden from me is what I must know. I was not sent to stand in halls, I was sent to stand beside you." The silence in the room thickened. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel the suspicion growing behind him. The other officers no longer cared if he trusted her. They only cared that she already knew too much. Her arrival had turned the air poisonous, and yet he could not deny her presence. By treaty, she was his responsibility now. Every action she took would reflect on him. Her mistakes would be seen as his failure. Lyra walked past him slowly. Her step silent, she stopped at the glowing map on the wall. Her silver hand reached out, not touching, but hovering over the lines. The defense routes shimmered in her blue gaze, and she whispered, almost too soft to hear, "These paths are wrong, your enemies already know them." The words froze Daniel's blood. The room exploded in whispers. How could she know such a thing? Had she already been in contact with the enemy? Or was she warning them of a danger they refused to see? The commander slammed his hand against the table, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Enough," he barked. "This meeting is over." "We will continue later." His eyes locked on Daniel. "Take her. Take your assistant and keep her away from this room. Her presence is already a disruption." Daniel nodded stiffly, though inside he felt torn. She had entered at the worst moment. But her words, her calm warning, kept echoing in his ears as the officers filed out, their eyes sharp and heavy with suspicion. Daniel remained with her, the door closing behind them. The hallway outside seemed too quiet, the hum of machines loud against the silence of his thoughts. He turned to her, his voice low with anger. "Do you realize what you have done?" he said. "You walked into a storm you should never have entered. Now everyone thinks you are a spy." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. She looked at him not with fear but with something stranger, almost sorrow. "They would think it no matter what," she said. "To them I am already guilty, to you I am a burden. Yet the moment you fear is the moment we begin. The enemy is closer than you believe, closer than this base, closer than your trust." Daniel felt a chill travel down his spine. Her words rang with conviction. Too strong to be simple lies, he wanted to demand proof. He wanted to dismiss her, but deep inside, a small doubt grew like a crack in stone. Perhaps she was not wrong. Perhaps she had seen what humans could not. And that thought alone was more frightening than her sudden entrance. The hallway lights flickered once, shadows shifting across the metal walls. Daniel breathed slowly, the weight of the treaty pressing down on him heavier than ever. He now carried not only his duty, but the burden of her presence. Lyra, the alien assistant, had entered his life in the most dangerous way, and nothing would ever be the same again. First mission together. The silence between Daniel and Lyra did not last long. Within hours of her arrival, orders came from the command office. There had been a strange power signal detected outside the colony zone. It was faint but steady, too regular to be natural, and too close to ignore. The commander did not trust sending her alone, and he did not trust her with anyone else. So Daniel was ordered to take her. Whether he liked it or not, Daniel felt his jaw tighten as he received the order. This was no simple patrol. Signals like this often meant hidden beacons, enemy scouts or traps. He looked at Lyra, who stood calm, her glowing eyes watching him as if she already knew the mission before the words were spoken. She said nothing. She only nodded once, and Daniel felt the weight of the treaty again. He had no choice. She was his responsibility. And now his partner in danger. The transport craft lifted off the ground, its engines humming low. The desert plain stretched out beneath them, endless sand broken only by sharp rocks and abandoned ruins from old wars. Daniel sat in silence, his hand on the control panel, his eyes on the horizon but his mind restless. Lyra sat across from him, unmoving, her hands folded neatly, her glowing eyes fixed on the view outside. She looked like a statue carved from silver light, unbothered by the tension in the air. He wanted to ask her questions, where she came from, what her people truly wanted, how she knew so much about human defenses. But every time he opened his mouth, he stopped himself. Part of him feared her answers more than her silence. Finally, unable to hold it in, he asked in a sharp voice, "Why did you walk into that meeting? You ruined everything." His eyes did not leave the desert below, but his words carried all the anger he had been holding. Lyra turned her head slowly, her voice soft but layered. "I entered because the moment demanded it. Your leaders plan in shadows, but shadows cannot hide from what is coming. The signal we follow now is not an accident. It is connected to the truth I spoke. You may not trust me, Daniel, but soon you will have no choice." Her words made his skin prickle. He hated the calm certainty in her tone, as if she had already seen the ending of a story he was still reading. He almost snapped back, but then the warning alarm blinked. The signal was stronger now, closer, coming from the ruins ahead. Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. His training taking over, the ship descended carefully, dust rising in thick clouds as they landed. The ruins were old, broken towers half buried in sand, walls leaning like tired giants. The air was dry and still. Daniel stepped out first, weapon ready, his visor scanning for movement. Lyra followed without hesitation, no weapon in her hands, only her glowing eyes moving across the ruins as if she could read the stones themselves. Daniel moved slow, cautious, checking every shadow, but she walked with calm steps, as if danger itself would not touch her. They found the source of the signal deep inside a collapsed hall, a small device glowing faint red. Half buried in rubble, Daniel crouched low, scanning it. The device pulsed like a heartbeat, sending its signal into the sky. "It's a beacon," he muttered. "Enemy scouts will come." He reached for his communicator to report back. But before he could speak, Lyra placed her hand gently on his arm. "Wait," she said, her eyes locked on the device. "This is not only a beacon, it is a trap. If you send a signal now, it will activate, and we will not leave here alive." Daniel froze. His instinct told him to call it in. His training told him to follow procedure, but her voice carried a strange weight. He pulled his hand back slowly, his eyes narrowing. "How do you know?" he asked. Suspicion sharp in his tone, but Lyra only whispered, "Because my enemies are your enemies too." Before Daniel could press her further, the sound came, distant at first, then louder, the echo of engines. The sand outside shifting under heavy steps, shapes moving among the ruins, dark silhouettes with sharp weapons glowing in the sun. Daniel's heart raced. The ambush had begun. He raised his weapon, taking cover behind the stone wall, his voice urgent, "Stay down. They're here." But when he turned, Lyra did not hide. She stepped forward, her silver skin glowing brighter, her hands rising as if to call the light itself. The first enemy soldier charged. Weapon raised, but before Daniel could fire, Lyra moved, faster than human eyes could follow. Her hand stretched out, and a wave of blue energy burst from her palm. The soldier was thrown back, crashing into the ruins with a cry. Daniel stared in shock, his finger frozen on the trigger. Her power was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth, precise, controlled, she fought without fear. As if the ruins were her home and the enemy her prey, Daniel fired his weapon. Covering her flank, the battle raged through the ruins, enemy after enemy falling under the strange mix of human steel and alien light. Dust rose, echoes shook the walls, the beacon pulsed faster. And Daniel realized she had been right. This was not random. This was designed to trap them, to test them, to break the treaty before it had even begun. Finally, the last enemy fell, silence returning to the ruins. Daniel's chest heaved with breath, sweat running down his face. His weapon still hot in his hands, he turned to Lyra, who stood calm, her glowing eyes steady, her skin dimming back to silver. She looked untouched by the fight, while he felt like his strength had been drained away for a long moment. They said nothing, only the sound of wind moving through broken walls. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice rough. "You saved me," he admitted, the words heavy. He hated saying them, but they were true. Lyra only looked at him, her expression unreadable, and said, "No, Daniel, I saved us both because what comes next will not spare you or me. Only together do we stand a chance." Her words sank deep. Heavier than the silence, Daniel lowered his weapon slowly, his eyes on her glowing face. The suspicion still burned in his chest, but so did something else, something new. A question he did not want to ask. Could he trust her? Or was she only building the moment where trust would become his downfall, secrets revealed? The ruins were silent again, but the silence did not feel safe. Daniel kept his weapon close, his eyes scanning the shadows. Every stone seemed to hold a secret. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. The broken beacon still glowed faint red, its pulse slower now, weaker, as if it had completed its task. Daniel wanted to smash it, to crush it under his boot. But something in Lyra's steady gaze stopped him. She stood near the device, her silver skin reflecting the faint light, her eyes glowing blue, studying it with a calm that made Daniel uneasy. Finally she spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. "This beacon is more than a signal. It holds memory. It records movements, codes, and transmissions. Your defenses are already known to the enemy." She turned her gaze to him. "And that is why I entered your meeting, because the knowledge you hide has already been stolen." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Anger rising, he stepped closer, his weapon still in hand, though it hung low. "How do you know this?" he demanded. "How do you know what the enemy has? How do you know what is inside a device we only just found?" His voice was harsh, but beneath it was fear. Fear that her words were true. Lyra did not flinch. She looked at him with eyes that seemed to see deeper than his words. "Because I have seen this technology before. Not here, not on Earth, but among my own people. It is the mark of a faction that does not believe in peace. They would burn treaties. They would turn allies into enemies. They already walk in shadows near your bases." Her tone was calm, but her words cut sharp. Every officer's nightmare given voice. Daniel shook his head, frustration boiling. "You expect me to believe that," he said. "You, who walked into a classified meeting. You, who knew details no alien should know. You tell me this device is proof, but for all I know, you planted it yourself." His words came fast, his suspicion spilling out. He had held it back too long for the first time. Lyra's calm broke, her eyes glowed brighter. Her voice sharpened. "If I wished to betray you, Daniel, you would already be dead. Your base would already be in flames. I did not choose this assignment, but I will not let you or your people walk blind into a trap you cannot escape." Her tone was fierce, layered like thunder, and for a moment Daniel believed her, though his pride would not let him admit it. The beacon flickered suddenly, sparks spitting from its surface. Daniel raised his weapon, but Lyra crouched quickly, her silver fingers moving with delicate precision. She touched a hidden point on the device, and the light dimmed, the pulse fading to nothing. Daniel stared in disbelief. "How did you do that?" he asked, his voice low. "Our scanners could not even find a control switch." Lyra stood again, her face unreadable. "Because it is not made for your hands," she said. "This design is alien, but not of my kind, a rival race. One that believes only in conquest if they succeed here. Earth will not survive." Daniel swallowed hard, her words sinking like stones in his chest. He wanted to deny her, to call her a liar, But the ruined beacon at their feet was proof enough that something dangerous was moving in the dark. They began their walk back through the ruins, the air thick with dust and silence. Daniel kept close watch, still suspicious, but something in him shifted. She had stopped the beacon, she had saved his life in the battle, and yet her knowledge frightened him more than the enemies they had faced. He asked again, softer this time. "How do you know so much about Earth's defenses? You spoke as if you had seen our maps before." Lyra walked in silence for a few steps. Then she turned her glowing eyes toward him, her voice lower now, almost human in its weight. "Because I was shown them, Daniel, not by my people, but by yours." Daniel froze, his boots scraping against stone, his mind spinning. "What do you mean?" he demanded. But her words came slow, heavy, as if she carried a burden she did not wish to share. "There are humans who speak with those who wish for war. They trade secrets for power, and they will break your Earth from within." Daniel felt his stomach twist. The thought of traitors among his own commanders, his own soldiers, was worse than any alien enemy. He wanted to shout that she was lying. He wanted to deny it, but deep down he knew whispers had already reached him in the past. Rumors of supply lines leaking, of raids too perfectly timed, of secrets that vanished from locked vaults. Now those whispers felt like thunder in his ears. They reached the transport craft as the sun sank low, the sky burning orange over the desert. Daniel stood by the ramp, his weapon heavy in his hands. His heart heavier in his chest, he looked at her, standing calm in the fading light, her silver skin glowing faint in the dusk. He spoke slowly, his words careful. "If what you say is true, then there are traitors in my command, and you knew before I did. That makes you either my greatest ally or my most dangerous enemy." Lyra did not smile. She did not show pride, she only said, "The truth is rarely welcome, Daniel, but it does not wait for belief. It comes whether you trust me or not." Her voice was quiet, yet certain, and Daniel felt the storm inside him deepen. He climbed into the craft without another word, but in his mind a single question echoed like a drum. Who could he really trust, his commanders, his people, or the alien woman assigned to him at the worst possible moment? The betrayal, the journey back to base was silent. Daniel sat in the pilot seat. His eyes on the horizon, the transport hummed low, the desert below rolling like a sea of sand. Lyra sat behind him, calm as always, her glowing eyes watching the shifting sky. Daniel's thoughts were heavy. Every word she had spoken in the ruins pressed on him. Humans trading secrets, traitors hiding inside command. It was too much to believe. And yet his heart knew the signs had always been there when they landed. The base looked the same. Steel walls, guards at the gates, banners of Earth defense snapping in the wind. But to Daniel it no longer felt solid, it felt fragile. As if the walls could fall with one whispered lie. He reported the beacon, keeping his words sharp and factual. Avoiding Lyra's warnings, the commander listened, his jaw tight, his eyes narrow. But when Daniel finished, he only said, "We will handle it," and dismissed them. Daniel could feel the distance in his tone, as if part of the truth was already being hidden that night. Daniel could not sleep. He walked the halls of the base, his boots echoing against the metal floor. Shadows stretched long under the dim lights. He found himself standing outside the strategy room, the same room where Lyra had first entered. Voices drifted through the door, low and tense. He knew he should leave, but something pulled him closer. He pressed his ear to the cold steel, his heart pounding inside. He heard the commander's voice, sharp and angry. "The beacon was not supposed to be found so soon," another voice answered, softer, almost trembling. "The alien woman, she saw through it. She knows too much." Daniel froze, his stomach dropping, his breath caught in his throat. These were not enemy spies. These were his own leaders, speaking of traps, of secrets, of plans not meant for Earth's defense but for its surrender. He stepped back, shock and rage filling him. His first instinct was to burst in, to shout, to drag them into the open, but a hand touched his shoulder. He spun around, weapon half raised, and found Lyra standing there, her glowing eyes calm but sad. She shook her head slowly, whispering, "Not now, Daniel, if you move too soon. They will silence you before you can speak." Her words stung, but deep down he knew she was right. Already he was seen as suspect for working with her. If he accused his commander now, no one would believe him. Daniel lowered his weapon, his teeth clenched, his voice low and rough. "You knew," he said. "You knew there were traitors here, and you let me walk blind into their trust." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, her layered voice answering. I told you the truth, but you were not ready to see it. Now you have seen it with your own eyes, and the burden is heavier. The next day, orders came fast. Daniel was told to lead a new patrol into the outer sector. Far from the base, far from the safety of walls. His team was small, too small for the danger, and Lyra was told to accompany him again. He felt the trap immediately. His commander's cold eyes made it clear. This was not a mission. This was an exile, a chance for them both to vanish in the sands and never return, as they moved across the desert in silence. Daniel felt anger rising, not at Lyra this time, but at the men he had once called leaders. The betrayal cut deeper than any alien threat. He had sworn loyalty to Earth, but Earth's own guardians had sold pieces of it away. The signal, the beacon, the secrets. All of it pointed to one thing. The war was not only outside, it was inside. Hidden behind familiar faces, the patrol moved into a canyon, the walls high and jagged, shadows stretching long. Daniel ordered his men to spread out, his eyes sharp, but the ambush came too fast. Explosions tore through the rocks. Enemy fire rained down from above. The soldiers scattered. Daniel dove for cover, his weapon hot in his hands. The enemy was already waiting, someone had told them. Someone had given away their route. Daniel shouted orders, his voice raw, but his men fell one by one. The trap was too perfect, too well planned. His blood boiled as he realized this was not chance. This was betrayal. The traitors inside the base had sent them here to die, to erase him and Lyra before they could expose the truth through the chaos. Lyra fought with fierce precision, her blue energy bursting against the canyon walls, shielding the soldiers where she could. But even her power could not turn the tide alone. Daniel crawled across the rocks, his chest burning, his eyes searching for his men. But the canyon was filling with smoke and dust, screams echoing, fire glowing. It was a slaughter at last. Daniel saw her, Lyra standing tall in the middle of the chaos, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever. Her eyes burning like twin stars, she shouted his name, her voice layered, fierce. Daniel! The enemy is not only here, the enemy is behind you. He turned, and through the smoke he saw him. The figure stepping from the shadows, weapon aimed, face clear. It was not an alien, it was a human, one of his own officers, a man he had trusted for years. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Daniel froze, his breath caught. The officer sneered, his voice cold. You should have stayed silent, Daniel. The treaty is nothing but a mask, and you have already lost. His finger tightened on the trigger. Daniel raised his weapon too late, but before the shot fired, a wave of blue light slammed into the traitor, throwing him back against the canyon wall. Lyra stood at Daniel's side, her voice steady. Now you have seen the truth with your own eyes, Daniel. Now you understand? The canyon burned with smoke and ruin. His men lay scattered, the enemy retreating after their trap failed. Daniel's heart pounded with grief and rage. He looked at Lyra, her glowing face unreadable, his voice heavy with despair. My own people betrayed me, he said. My commander sent me to die. The words felt broken, but Lyra only answered softly. Now the war has begun, Daniel, and you must choose where you stand. With those who sold your world, or with those who would save it. The choice smoke still hung in the canyon, the air thick with dust and the bitter smell of burnt rock. Daniel's ears rang from the explosions. His chest ached with every breath. His soldiers were gone, some dead, some lost in the chaos, and only Lyra stood with him now, her silver skin dimmed but unbroken, her glowing eyes fixed on the shadows where the traitor had fallen. She seemed calm, but Daniel could feel the storm beneath her voice. He leaned against the canyon wall, his weapon still in his hand, his mind spinning. Betrayal from his own commander. Betrayal from men he had trusted for years. His world was cracking, and in the middle of it stood the alien woman assigned to him by treaty. The one he had tried not to trust, the one who might be his only chance to survive. The beacon in the ruins, the ambush in the canyon, the traitor's words. It all wove together into a net that closed tighter around him. Lyra turned to him, her layered voice sharp but steady. They will not stop, Daniel. The humans who sold their loyalty have tied themselves to my people's enemies. If you return to the base without proof, they will erase you. They will erase us both. The choice is in front of you now. Daniel's hand tightened on his weapon, sweat running down his face, his voice cracked with anger. You want me to choose you, an alien I barely know? Against my own commanders, my own people, you ask me to betray Earth? His words cut the air like a blade, but even as he spoke, he knew the weight of them was false. Because it was not betrayal to see the truth. It was betrayal to keep blind when the truth screamed in his ears. Lyra stepped closer, her glowing eyes locking on his, her voice lower now, heavy with urgency. I do not ask you to betray Earth. I ask you to save it. You cannot fight this alone. You cannot fight this within the walls of men who are already bought. You must decide, Daniel. You must give me what I need. She opened her hand, silver light shimmering across her palm. Not a weapon, but a device, small and unfinished. She said, your codes, your access, with them I can cut into the traitors' network. I can expose the truth before they bury it. But if you give me nothing, then we die here, hunted by both sides, and Earth falls before it even understands what it faces. Daniel froze, his mind tearing itself apart. The codes she asked for were his lifeline, his authority, his last weapon of control. In the wrong hands, they could shatter Earth's defenses in a single breath. To hand them to her was madness, and yet, to refuse her now meant death in the canyon and silence across the stars. He stared at her open hand, his own shaking, his breath shallow. Memories surged in his mind, his commander's cold voice in the strategy room, the traitor's sneer in the canyon, his soldiers dying under a storm they had not been warned about. Every piece told him his loyalty had already been betrayed, not by himself but by the very leaders sworn to protect Earth. He whispered to himself, if I cannot trust them, then who can I trust? Lyra's eyes softened for the first time since he met her, her voice gentler, almost human. You can trust the one who saved your life when no one else would. You can trust the one who stood beside you when even your own turned against you. The choice is yours, Daniel, not mine. The canyon was silent but for the wind, the dust settling slowly. Daniel's hand moved to his wrist console. His heart pounding like war drums, he stared at her, searching her face for any sign of deception. But all he saw was resolve. A fire deeper than betrayal. He entered the sequence, the codes glowing on his screen, and with a heavy breath, he placed his console into her waiting hand. Her silver fingers closed around it. Her glowing eyes flared brighter, the device in her palm humming to life, streams of blue light running across its surface. She worked quickly, her hands moving with alien speed, codes spilling into networks, connections sparking like lightning across unseen lines. Daniel watched in silence, his chest tight, his choice heavy. Suddenly the air shifted. A voice cut through the static of his comms, sharp and panicked. Daniel, respond, where are you? The mission is lost, return to base immediately. It was the commander's voice, but twisted now, strained. The fear in it clear. Daniel glanced at Lyra, and she shook her head, her voice steady. He knows. He feels the net closing, he fears the truth. The device sparked, light bursting from its core, Lyra's eyes glowing like twin stars. She whispered, it is done. The traitors are exposed. Their transmissions burned into your system. Proof no one can deny. She handed the console back, her hand trembling slightly now. The first crack Daniel had seen in her unshaken strength. Daniel looked at the console, the data scrolling like fire across the screen. Names, codes, transmissions, faces of men he had called leaders, all tied to the enemy, all tied to betrayal. His chest heaved, his throat tight. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. Instead, he looked at Lyra, her glowing eyes meeting his, and he realized his choice had already been made before he handed her the codes. He had chosen her the moment he survived the canyon. The silence stretched long, then she spoke softly, her words both warning and promise. This was only the first step. Daniel, you chose me, but the war has only begun, and soon Earth must choose too. Daniel looked out at the broken canyon, the setting sun casting long shadows, his weapon heavy at his side, his world forever changed. He had made his choice, but the cost of it had only just begun to show. The truth and the future. The canyon lay behind them, broken and silent, the echoes of battle fading into the desert wind. Daniel stood at the ramp of the transport craft, his console heavy in his hands, the screen still glowing with names and codes, each line a wound cut into his loyalty, each face a scar across his faith. The truth was there, undeniable. His commanders, his leaders, men he had sworn to follow, were traitors. Lyra stood beside him, her silver skin dim under the fading light, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her presence carried the weight of the moment. Daniel looked at her, his voice rough. You said the enemy was closer than we believed. You were right, it was not just the ruins. It was not just the beacon. It was inside the walls of our own command. He paused, his chest tight. And now I cannot go back. Can I? Her layered voice was calm, almost soft. If you return, Daniel, they will silence you. They will call you traitor. They will erase the proof before it breathes in daylight. The choice you made binds you to a different path now. Not to the walls of your base, but to the survival of your world. The engines of the craft roared to life, lifting them into the sky, the desert shrinking beneath them. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, his hands heavy on the controls, his mind heavier still. The console beside him glowed, the proof waiting, the betrayal clear. He wanted to scream. He wanted to strike back, but more than that, he wanted answers. Answers only Lyra seemed to hold. He turned to her, his voice sharp. Why me out of all the officers? Why was I the one given an alien assistant? Why was I the one sent into this storm? Was it by chance or by design? His eyes narrowed, his suspicion rising again. Did your people choose me? Lyra met his gaze without fear, her glowing eyes steady, her voice layered but low. Chance is a word humans use when they do not see the pattern. Daniel, you were chosen not by me, not by my people alone, but by the treaty itself. The agreement was more than politics, it was preparation. The leaders who signed it knew the storm was coming. They placed us together not for peace, but for survival. Daniel's breath caught. The weight of her words sinking deep, he looked out at the sky, clouds stretching across the horizon like torn sails. Survival, that was the truth. The treaty was not only a truce, it was a shield built in secret against a war no one wanted to admit was real, he whispered to himself. Then the treaty was never about trust. It was about fear. Lyra's eyes dimmed, her voice quiet. Fear and hope are not so different. Daniel, fear makes walls, hope makes bridges, but both are fragile, and both can be broken. Your people and mine signed a line on paper, but the real treaty is here between us, between those who fight when others hide. The craft cut through the night sky, the stars bright and cold. Daniel stared at them, distant and endless. He thought of Earth, of cities glowing with lights, of people who laughed and lived, who had no idea their leaders had already betrayed them. He thought of his soldiers, their faces lost in the canyon, gone because of secrets traded in the dark. His chest burned with grief and fury, but also with something new, something sharp and alive. Determination, the console beeped. The proof secured, encrypted, undeniable. Daniel knew what it meant once he shared it. The world would change. Trust in the command would shatter. The treaty would no longer be politics. It would be survival. But before he could speak, Lyra's voice cut through his thoughts. This was only the first step, Daniel. The true enemy has not yet come. Those who betrayed you are only tools. The hand that moves them is still in the shadows. Daniel turned to her, his eyes fierce. Then tell me, who is it? Who are we really fighting? His voice was raw, his heart pounding, but Lyra only shook her head, her glowing eyes distant. Not yet if I tell you now. You will not believe. You will call me liar again, and we cannot afford another wall of mistrust between us. What I can tell you is this: the enemy is not only alien, the enemy is inside every species that hungers for power, even among my kind.